everybody, and happy Winnie the Pooh Day. Today we are going to celebrate everyone's favorite bumbling bear by reading one of the original stories that Winnie the Pooh was in. It's the origin story of Winnie the Pooh right here. And then after that we are going to do just a fun little activity with Winnie the Pooh's favorite food. You remember what Winnie the Pooh's favorite food is? I'll give you a hint. It's very sweet and sticky. It's honey. All right, so after we're done reading our story, we are going to make some honey slime, which is going to be so fun. It's even edible. So if you want to, you could take a bite. So let's go ahead and just dive into our story. Alrighty, everybody. We are going to go ahead and we are going to read the very first chapter of Winnie the Pooh. You're always welcome to reserve your own copy of the whole Winnie the Pooh from the library if you'd like. I'm reading from my own copy of Winnie the Pooh. Anyone who knows me knows that Winnie the Pooh is very near and dear to my heart, so I really hope that you enjoy this. We're going to go ahead and get started here. It's the first page. There's Christopher Robin and Mr. Pooh. All right, so this chapter is called In Which We Are Introduced to Winnie the Pooh and Some Bees, and the story begins. Here we go. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, bump, bump on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there's really another way. If only he could stop bumping for a moment and think about it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. When I first heard his name, I said, just as you are going to say, but I thought he was a boy. So did I, said Christopher Robin. And then you can't call him Winnie. I don't. But you said, he's Winnie their Pooh. And don't you know what there means? Ah, yes, now I do, I said quickly, and I hope you do too, because it's all the explanation you're going to get. Sometimes Winnie the Pooh likes a game of some sort where he comes downstairs, and sometimes he likes to sit quietly in front of the fire and listen to a story. This evening, what about a story, said Christopher Robin. What about a story, I said. Could you very sweetly tell Winnie the Pooh one? I suppose I could, I said. What sort of stories does he like? About himself, because he's that sort of bear. I see. So could you, very sweetly? I'll try, I said, and so I tried. Once upon a time, a very long time ago now, about last Friday, Winnie the Pooh lived in a forest all by himself under the name of Sanders. What does under the name mean? Asked Christopher Robin. It means he had a name over the door in gold letters and he lived under it. Winnie the Pooh wasn't quite sure, said Christopher Robin. Now I am, said a growly voice. Then I will go in, I said. One day, when he was out walking, he came to an open place in the middle of the forest, and in the middle of this place was a large oak tree, and from the top of the tree there came a loud buzzing noise. Winnie the Pooh sat down at the foot of the tree, put his head between his paws, and began to think. First of all, he said to himself, that buzzing noise means something. You don't get a buzzing noise like that, just buzzing and buzzing, without it meaning something. If there's a buzzing noise, someone's making a buzzing noise. And the only reason for making a buzzing noise that I know of is because you're a bee. Then he thought long time and said, the only reason for being a bee that I know of is making honey. And then he got up and said, and the only reason for making honey is so that I can eat it. And so he began to climb the tree. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed, and as he climbed, he sang a little song to himself, and it went like this. Isn't it funny how a bear likes honey? Buzz, buzz, buzz. I wonder why he does. And then he climbed a little further and further and just a little further, And by that time, he had thought of another song. It's a very funny thought that if bears were bees, they'd build their nests at the bottoms of trees. And that being so, if the bees were bears, we shouldn't have to climb up all these stairs. He was getting rather tired by this time, so that is why he sang a complaining song. He was nearly there now, and if he just stood on that branch, crack! "Oh, help," said Pooh as he dropped 10 feet on the branch below him. "If only I hadn't," he said as he bounced 20 feet to the next branch. "You see what I meant to do," he explained as he turned head over heels and crashed onto another branch 30 feet below. "What I meant to do, of course, it was rather," he admitted as he slithered very quickly through the next 6 branches. "It all comes, I suppose," he decided as he said goodbye to the last branch, spun around 3 times and flew gracefully into a gorse bush. "It all comes from liking honey so much. Oh, help." He crawled out of the gorse bush, brushed the prickles from his nose, and began to think again. And the first person he thought of was Christopher Robin. "Was that me?" said Christopher Robin in an awed voice, hardly daring to believe it. "That was you." Christopher Robin said nothing, but his eyes got larger and larger and his face got pinker and pinker. So Winnie the Pooh went round to his friend Christopher Robin, who lived beneath a green door in another part of the forest. "Good morning, Christopher Robin," he said. "Good morning, Winnie the Pooh," said you. "I wonder if you've got such a thing as a balloon about you." "A balloon?" "Yes, I just said to myself coming along, I wonder if Christopher Robin has such a thing as a balloon about him. I just said it to myself, thinking of balloons and wondering." "What do you want a balloon for?" you said. Winnie the Pooh looked round to see that nobody else was listening and put his paw to his mouth and said in a deep whisper, "Honey." "But you don't get honey with balloons." "I do," said Pooh. "Well, it just happened that you had to have a party the day before at a house of your friend Piglet, and you had balloons at the party, and you had a big green balloon, and one of Rabbit's relations had a big blue one and had left it behind, being really too young to go to a party at all, and so you had brought the green one and the blue one home with you." "Which one would you like?" you asked Pooh, and he put his head carefully between his paws and thought very carefully. "It's like this," he said. "When you go after honey with a balloon, the great thing is not to let the bees know you're coming. Now, if you have a green balloon, they might think you are only part of the tree and not notice. And if you had the blue balloon, then they might think you are only part of the sky and not notice you. The question is, which one is more likely?" "Wouldn't they notice you underneath the balloon?" you asked. "They might or might not," said Winnie the Pooh. "You never can tell with bees." He thought for a moment and said, "I shall try to look like a small black cloud. That will deceive them." "Then you had better have the blue balloon," you said, and so it was decided. Well, you both went out with the blue balloon, and you took your gun with you, just in case, as you always did, and Winnie the Pooh went to a very muddy place that he knows of, and rolled until he was black all over, and then, when the balloon was blown up as big as you and Pooh were both holding onto the string, you let go suddenly, and Winnie the Pooh floated gracefully up to the sky and stayed there, level with the top of the tree, about 20 feet away from it. "Hooray!" you shouted. "Isn't that fine?" shouted Winnie the Pooh down to you. "What do I look like?" "You look like a bear holding onto a balloon," you said. "Not," said Pooh anxiously, "not like a small black cloud in a blue sky?" "Not very much." "Ah, well, perhaps from up here it looks different. And as I say, you never can tell with bees." There was no wind to blow him nearer to the tree, so there he stayed. He could see the honey, he could smell the honey, but he couldn't quite reach the honey. After a little while, he called down to you. "Christopher Robin," he said in a loud whisper. "Halloo!" I think the bees suspect something. What sort of thing? I don't know, but something tells me they're very suspicious. Perhaps they think you're after their honey. It may be that. You never can tell with bees. There was another little silence, and then he called down to you again. Christopher Robin. Yes? Have you an umbrella at your house? I think so. I wish you would bring it out here and walk up and down with it and look at me every now and then and say, "Tut, tut, it looks like rain." I think if you did that, it would help the deception which we are practicing on these bees. Well, you laughed to yourself, silly old bear, but you didn't say it aloud because you were so fond of him and you went home for your umbrella. "Oh, there you are," called down Winnie the Pooh as you got back to the tree. "I was beginning to get anxious. I have discovered that the bees are now definitely suspicious." "Shall I put my umbrella up?" you said. "Yes, but wait a moment. We must be practical. The important bee to deceive is the queen bee. Can you see which is the queen bee from down there?" "No." "A pity. Well, if you walk up and down with your umbrella saying, 'Tut, tut, it looks like rain,' I shall do what I can by singing a little cloud song, such as a cloud might sing. Go." So while you walked up and down and wondered if it would rain, Winnie the Pooh sang this song. "How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. Every little cloud always sings aloud. How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. It makes him very proud to be a little cloud." The bees were still buzzing as suspiciously as ever, and some of them indeed left their nest and flew all around the cloud as it began its second verse of this song. And one bee sat down on the nose of the cloud for a moment and then got up again. "Christopher, ow! Robin," called the cloud. "Yes? I have just been thinking, and I have come to a very important decision. These are the wrong sorts of bees." "Are they?" "Quite the wrong sort. So I should think they would make the wrong sort of honey, shouldn't you?" "Would they?" "Yes. So I think I shall come down now." "How?" asked you. Winnie the Pooh hadn't thought about this. If he let go of the string, he would fall, bump, and he didn't like the idea of that. So he thought for a long time, and then he said, "Christopher Robin, you must shoot the balloon with your gun. Have you got your gun?" "Of course I had," you said, "but if I do that, it will spoil the balloon." "But if you don't," said Winnie the Pooh, "I shall have to let go, and that would spoil me." When you put it like this, you saw how it was, and you aimed very carefully at the balloon and fired. "Ow!" said Pooh. "Did I miss?" you asked. "You didn't exactly miss," said Pooh, "but you missed the balloon." "I'm so sorry," you said as you fired again. And this time you hit the balloon, and the air came slowly out, and Winnie the Pooh floated down to the ground. But his arms were so stiff from holding on to the string of the balloon all that time that they stayed up in the air for more than a week. And whenever a fly came and settled on his nose, he had to blow it off. And I think, but I'm not sure, that that is why he's always called Pooh. Pooh. "Is that the end of the story?" asked Christopher Robin. "It's the end of that one. There are others. About Pooh and me, and Piglet and Rabbit and all of you. Don't you remember?" "I do remember, and then when I try to remember, I forget." "That day when Pooh and Piglet tried to catch the Huffalump? They didn't catch it, did they?" "Nope. Winnie the Pooh couldn't because he hasn't any brain. Did I catch it?" "Well, that comes into the story." And Christopher Robin nodded. "I do remember," he said. "Only Pooh doesn't very well, and so that's what he likes having it told to him again, because then it's a real story and not just a remembering." "That's just how I feel," I said. And Christopher Robin gave a deep sigh, picked his bear up by the leg, and walked off to the door, trailing Pooh behind him. At the door, he turned and said, "Coming to see me have a bath?" I might, I said. I didn't hurt him when I shot him, did I? Not a bit. And he nodded and went out. In a moment, I heard Winnie the Pooh bump, 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 going up the stairs behind him. And that is the end of that chapter. If you get the book, you can do chapter 2, which is in which Pooh goes visiting and gets into a tight place. If you've read Winnie the Pooh this before, you might know what that tight place is. Might have to do something with Rabbit's house, right? Anyway, thank you for letting me read you part of one of my favorite books ever. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Winnie the Pooh day. Now let's go ahead and do some slime. Alrighty, now that we have finished reading our book, which I hope you enjoyed, we're going to jump into learning a little bit about some honey. So before we start making our slime, I just wanted to share just a cool little fact about honey that I think you might like. So when you go to the grocery store, the honey that you buy looks a lot like this. It might be in one of those cute little teddy bears, but it's basically this color, right? And this kind of honey is delicious, don't get me wrong, but it's like processed heavily before it becomes the honey that you get at the grocery store. But if you ever see raw honey, maybe at, I don't know, like a marketplace or something like that, you'll notice that the honey is all different colors. So these two right next to each other, you can tell that these are very different colors of honey. And the way that it gets that different color is actually from the nectar that the bees get for the honey. So depending on the plant that the bees are near, their hive is near, they will get completely different kinds of nectar and it will come out with different colored honey. So this one is a dewberry honey over here. So they had some dewberry plants and that is where they were getting their nectar. While this one is pumpkin and mint honey. So they probably got it from pumpkin plants or mint flowers. And they actually taste different too. It's not just a different color. So if you ever get a chance and you go to a market somewhere and you see raw honey, buy a couple of them and see if you can taste the difference. You could even compare it to the regular honey that you would get at the grocery store. All right, now that we've shared a cool little fact about honey, we're gonna go ahead and jump into our slime. So what you're going to need for your slime is you're gonna need some honey. You're gonna need about 1/4 cup of honey. I've already got mine poured out here in my bowl. You're also going to need about 3/4 cup of cornstarch. You might need a little bit more than that depending on your slime. And then you can also use vegetable oil. It's kind of optional, but you would only need a couple tablespoons if you're going to use it. And then you're also going to need measuring utensils and also some kind of stirring thing. So the first thing that you have to do after you pour your honey out into your bowl is actually heat it up in the microwave for about 45 seconds. So I'm gonna go do that real quick. I'll be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. And we've got some heated up honey down here. It's very liquidy. You can kind of see it in the bowl there. It also bubbled up a lot, so don't worry, it's okay. That's supposed to happen. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your cornstarch and a 1 tablespoon measure, and you are going to add cornstarch to your honey 1 tablespoon at a time. And as you're doing that, you're going to stir. It might be helpful to have a second pair of hands, because I can tell you that I don't have enough hands to do this on my own. Can't stir and put the cornstarch in there and measure it out all at the same time. Stir. So what you're looking for is a consistency in which the honey is no longer sticky. So you can imagine that that's probably going to be quite a lot of cornstarch. The recipe that I found said that it would probably end up being about 3/4 cup of cornstarch. You're also, you're gonna start out stirring your honey with some kind of utensil, but eventually you're going to have to start kneading it with your hands. So be ready. So at this point, I think I'm going to add a little bit of my vegetable oil here, because I think that my slime has taken up as much of the cornstarch as it can, but it's still a little bit sticky. So this is where you would start using the vegetable oil. So I'm only going to add just a little bit, like no more than a tablespoon, maybe like a capful. And this is totally optional. You don't have to add any vegetable oil. It just depends on how you want your slime to feel, basically. So like I said before, this slime, after a little while, it really depends on how you want your slime to feel, what you should add to your slime. So if you feel like it needs a little bit more cornstarch, add a little bit more cornstarch. If you think it needs a little more oil, add a little bit more oil. It's totally up to you. I think that my slime is pretty much finished. So this is kind of what the end will look like. So it's not sticky anymore, even though it's honey. And it smells absolutely divine. There you go. It's almost like Play-Doh, kind of. And my hands aren't even really sticky anymore. I've got like a little bit of cornstarch. I can just eat that up. And there you go. That's how you make some slime. And like I said, if you're brave, you can take a bite. Thank you so much for joining me for Winnie the Pooh Day today. Lastly, I actually do have a book recommendation for anybody who loves Winnie the Pooh but is looking for maybe a little bit more modern version. This book is called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, and it is by Charlie Maxey, the bottom. This book is so sweet. The illustrations are gorgeous, and it's another story about animals who are just being friends. You know, they're going on a sweet little adventure, and I highly recommend this book. It's so cute. So if you're looking for an additional book to read besides Winnie the Pooh, highly recommended. So I hope you guys go out there and explore your own 100-acre wood, and I will see you next time. Bye.